everyone, this is Jackie Cooper with Crypto Mom 2 Talk Show and the Blockchain Legal Institute. I want to thank everyone who's hopped on and remind everyone to always like and subscribe and let your friends and families and business associates know about the Crypto Mom 2 channel as well, so that way they can stay in the loop on what's going on within our blockchain community. I am constantly interviewing new people, and today's guest I'm very excited about, and so that's why we do need to have others know about what they're doing, so that way our community can reach out to them to support both the initiative as well as the tech side that they have an expertise in. Before I hop over to my guests and introduce them, for those that are new to Crypto Mom 2, I just want to share a little bit about myself. I am an educator and also an attorney, and I'm also an author of the Bitcoin Cinderella series. And what is kind of very funny to me is right before I came on, you know how you get these little ads that come, and so there was an ad that came to my Google account and it said, "This is something that you might be interested in." And in fact, it was one of the books I had written, The Bitcoin Cinderella and the Seven Dwarfs. So I thought, well, that's really, really funny and also very cute. But the focus of my vision of writing these stories is to educate families about the terms within the blockchain, both Bitcoin mining as well as metaverse, NFTs, a host of other tech terms that people are stepping into now. And I wrote these family books because I volunteer with various nonprofit organizations that are very family oriented. And that's one reason also why the Blockchain Legal Institute is associated with the Anti-Human Trafficking Intelligence Initiative, because we feel that it's important for everyone to do their part to do good within their community, whether it's small or whether it's large. And so that's sort of a little bit of a teaser as to who my guest is today. I learned about the initiative a number of years ago, and through another associate, Larry Cameron, and we're both cryptocurrency investigators, even though he has been in the space for a lot longer than I have. And today I'm interviewing one of his associates, Christopher Kemp, whose background is just fascinating. If you have ever watched any of these I want to say films that, deal with security and cybersecurity and science fiction and things like that, again, it's these individuals who have this background that, what's science fiction one day is truth another day. And again, in the blockchain world, especially, it takes someone with this type of intelligence to understand the ins and the outs. And especially with a passion for doing good, which is what the Anti-Human Trafficking Intelligence Initiative is all about. You need people with this type of skill set to be able to find the individuals and to also stop those who don't have a pure heart. So with that, Chris, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing fantastic, and thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
You don't really appreciate the recognition or the value of that recognition until you're in and I guess I could start with a little bit of my background. That way everyone understands where I'm coming from and kind of how I ended up with the Anti-Human Trafficking Intelligence Initiative. At 17, I had plans to go to college. I had 2 scholarships lined up. I worked my tail off with my grades to arrange those, and well, other plans were laid in front of me that I had no idea were in existence. I ended up getting a ride home after a car accident about 3 days prior with a friend of mine who didn't tell me he was going to stop at a recruiting office. So I ran into my first Marine Corps experience at 17 with gunnery sergeant at the recruiting office, and I had talked to other branches of the military, and I wasn't really interested. It wasn't for me, right? I didn't get the culture. I didn't see the motivation behind it. What the gunny did is he looked at me straight in the face and he said, "What do you got for me?" He didn't throw money at me. He'd say education was important. he asked me what the heck I was doing in his office and what I had to bring to the Marine Corps. And I was like, wow, these guys they mean business. They're going to challenge me. They're going to push me to limits that I never knew prior to this. So I threw aside my college plans and I entered the Marine Corps at 17, and I didn't get out until I was 26. At the end of which I had traveled to 5 continents. I had seen cultures across the globe. I had a unique understanding of the world and how it ebbed and flowed because of my experience within it in the counterintelligence space and in the human intelligence collection space. And when I got back to the U.S. and I was out of the service and away from the brotherhood and the camaraderie, I had a better. I also had an appreciation for where the world sat, because outside of the Marine Corps, in the civilian world, there was no connection. No one wanted to be tight. No one wanted to understand or appreciate each other or the value that everyone had, and everyone was all about the quick win, right? And so I did private security for 14 years in Las Vegas, which, oh, excuse me, it's not 14, 9 years in Las Vegas. And that also gave me an appreciation and a unique lens into the world, because Las Vegas is a tourism community. It brings in 20 million plus people a year from 306 countries. And I worked in the transit industry. I worked in the residential industry. I worked in the commercial space as well as the retail space. In that time, again, it gave me a unique lens to view the world through. And unfortunately, what I found about Las Vegas that I hadn't recognized previously was that it was a dangerous place to live.
Mhm.
I mean, highest violent crime rate in the nation for a number of the index crimes. A lot of prostitution and open prostitution on all the streets, not just the boulevard, but across the entirety of the community. Juveniles were going missing at an alarming rate in Las Vegas, and so many of them were ending up deceased that the coroner's office had an entire section dedicated to juveniles for autopsies and investigation.
Wow.
And that blew me away. I was like, wow, this is one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world, and yet the kids here aren't being taken care of. They're not being watched over. And when I left Las Vegas and went back to Montana, I had originally planned to do that because of my care and concern for my family. I got 4 kids, three girls and a boy, and I did not want to keep them in that environment. I didn't want to have to worry about them every day walking home from school or going out to play with their friends or being engaged in the community in sports. I wanted a more comfortable environment, so I moved up to the middle of nowhere in Montana with a population of the entire county of less than 1,200 people to get that. And with that newfound freedom, I went back to school again. I'm in a master's program for cybersecurity. I wanted to continue getting better with, continue honing my skills to add to all the previous experience I had. And in that time, I also found ATII. Started out as a volunteer. I was putting in between 40 and 50 hours a week for 3.5 years, fighting whenever I had the opportunity with open source intelligence, with analysis of what had already been collected, and just contributing wherever I could. Alongside that, in the grant space, I was trying to get ATII money because
Right.
that was the biggest challenge. I mean, here we are trying to do good for the world, and we're not out to make money. We were barely scratching by. I mean, 3.5 years existed as a volunteer because even though I was contributing and putting all this time and effort into ATII, they couldn't afford to bring me on as a paid employee because we had to put all of what we did have into continuing the mission,
Right.
you know, finding the information and getting it out to law enforcement, getting it out to financial institutions, getting it out into the tech space, because we're attacking 5 lanes that are focused around human trafficking. We're attacking the financial and industrial space and the compliance element, because there's a gap there for human trafficking to exist. Banks weren't identifying it in transaction monitoring. On the other side, in the cryptocurrency space, the anonymity of Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin was highly valued by the criminal element. In fact, when you go out on the blockchain and you do some bare bones analytics on a couple of wallets, it may not be the immediate wallet next to it or the one after that, but if you do some deeper dives, 4 and 5 layers in, you're going to find that there are clusters out there on most blockchains that link back to dark markets, that link back to CSAM, to pedophilia activity, to child sex trafficking, to fraud and scam. And when you do find those clusters, they're typically pretty large clusters. I mean, we're not talking about 1 or 2 Bitcoin or 1 or 2 Litecoin or Ethereum. We're talking about hundreds are in these clusters and hundreds more. I mean, it seems like every time I go out there in the crypto space, I find net new content exists because the wallet we found isn't already attributed or linked to a cluster. It's a new wallet. And that's a lot to do with the fact that our bad guys are evolving. They're getting smart as blockchain forensics grows and exchanges are jumping on board and entering the compliance space with KYC and AML programs. Our bad guys are figuring that if they don't want to get caught, they have to generate new wallets for every person that comes on their service, on their site. And what that does in the cryptocurrency, in the blockchain space, is you have to look harder to find that active wallet associated to a CSAM site or to an arms trafficking site or a drug or narcotics trafficking site, because everyone that comes on the site isn't buying stuff. They might just be looking around, but it's still generating a new wallet, which means it's on there in the blockchain, but it has no activity. So 25, 30, 40 wallets or so that have attribution with keywords to an illegal activity, you're only finding 1 or 2 that are actually active. But after you make that discovery, it's not very hard to link that wallet back to a cluster and to recognize, holy wow, this is insane. How much Bitcoin or Ethereum, Litecoin, how much currency is being transacted on a daily basis, and most of it from the dark web, not all of it. Some of it's on the clearing too, on the surface, where you're finding your Google and Bing and Yahoo and your social media platforms. They're moving to cryptocurrency. I'm finding crypto wallets on escort sites, even, and they're disguising them. They're saying, "Hey, donate to our site to keep us going." And there's a crypto wallet or an Ethereum wallet or Litecoin wallet. You're going, why are you asking for donations? You're a paid site. You're being offered money for your services on some level, but you're asking for donations in the cryptocurrency space. But then you have credit or debit card payment options on the other side of the page. And that makes sense to me, because if you're going to collect large amounts of money and you want to obfuscate it very quickly and spread it out over a large quantity of space, cryptocurrency is the way to go. And plus, there's no boundaries in cryptocurrency. There's no barriers. There's no borders. So you can very easily start a transaction here in the United States and end that transaction before you offload that crypto into fiat currency into another country, and you can do it very quickly. And there's a lot of countries out there that don't have any kind of regulations, because cryptocurrency depends on the country or jurisdiction to build out those regulations. Otherwise, if there's not an existence, then it's a wild west, free as you go, however you want to, because there's not even any regulations out there on the international level that everyone has agreed upon. That, hey, these are the ones that we have to have in place, and they're enforced across the entire planet, like they have in the conventional financial space. So that all being said, and I know it's a mouthful, what I would urge people to do if they're in the crypto space, if they're buying cryptocurrency, be aware of who you're transacting with, what you're buying and where you're buying it. Because even though you may not be participating in an illegal activity, you never know what the third party and second party contacts are with that organization you are purchasing something with cryptocurrency. They may be using that to obfuscate money or run a money laundering scheme or a fraud scheme. And by doing that, conducting that transaction and not thinking about it, not taking a second to analyze what you're buying and who you're buying it from, you may be making it easier for the bad guys to run away and get away with horrible things. And that's not just in crypto, that's in general, right?
Right.
We especially in the US, we are impulse driven society where, hey, that looks cool, I want that, and you just buy it. You don't even think twice about it. You don't consider where you're buying it from, or who you're buying it from, or what that company's doing with their money. Um,
No, I agree with you. You brought up a few good points. I do have the website up, and for those that are listening on the audio side, the website will be below. For those that are on the YouTube side, definitely you'll be able to click through the link and also explore and also support and donate to what the Anti-Human Trafficking Intelligence Initiative is doing. But you mentioned that the idea that individuals, if they're buying something, that they can actually kind of maybe do some research or check things out to see if the site is legit or might have some illicit type of background. How would you actually be able to do that? Because again, just like regular websites or traditional businesses, they're, well, I'm thinking two things. One is a lot of times people don't take a deep dive when they're buying something. They'll just like the product, do a click and purchase and not even look to find out more about the company. But again, if it's not an Amazon, if it's not a company that they know, is there something that they maybe should do to kind of be more proactive of making sure that the company that they're with going to be supporting is on the good side? And then the second question I have for you is, for companies that are interested in building a business model that is more proactive in doing good and making sure that their actions are appropriate. I know you do consulting, so I want to kind of look at this, the consumer side as well as the business development side too.
no, sure, that makes total sense. It's a full spectrum question, right? Two sides of the story here.
Mhm.
As individuals, most of our purchases are nowadays are online, right? There's a website, there's a pay portal, there's a store that you're accessing to make a purchase, and you can look at the quality of that website, that page, and it's pretty easy to determine if a page is legitimate or if the page is sort of like, well, this isn't very pretty, or these links over here don't work on the right hand side, or there's a lot of pop-ups or ads that show up on this page. And if you're a developer and you're building a site out and you're promoting a product, every aspect of your promotion is going to be professional quality. And that's a way to kind of view that organization on how they might be approaching their business model. Are they taking precautions to avoid those third party connections to illegal activity? If their website isn't developed that well, they probably aren't, right? They're just throwing something out there and then quick, get it out there and make those sales as often as we can. The other thing that you could look at is if you're buying a product, like for example, clothing, where's that clothing coming from? Are they producing it or manufacturing that in the United States? Are they producing it in Europe? Are they producing it in Africa? You know, there's a lot of areas in the world where activities like trafficking or exploitation are more prolific than they are in others. Parts of Central Africa, parts of Southeast Asia, the Philippines, for example, Malaysia, Cambodia, Vietnam, um, Myanmar. Those areas are more likely to have exploitation of labor force ongoing than other areas of the world because the regulations are less stringent. The requirements for opening and operating a business are not really set in stone. There's a lot of corruption as well. There's a really awesome website called the Corruption Index. It's called the Corruption Index. I can't remember the organization that built it out, but it's out there online. If you do a Google search for Corruption Index, you'll get a map, and the entire globe is highlighted in certain colors. And where their countries are more corrupt, the colors are darker than the countries that are less corrupt. And if you have a corrupt government, then that means that somewhere in the governments there's payoffs, there's bribes, there's shortcuts being taken, and people aren't paying very well attention because, well, they're being paid to not pay attention. Um, I know that that's a lot to ask of an individual who's going out to buy something, and maybe that's, an extra little bit of effort when you're shopping for stuff. But if you just bear in mind that extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes may alleviate the pain and suffering of an actual human being who's being exploited for whatever reason from being exploited, then your effort is that much more worthwhile to take that extra 5 or 10 minutes to make sure that you as a consumer aren't contributing to that overall problem. Just those few things. Look at the website, look at the product, where's it being made? That's really easy, really fast on Google to figure those things out. Most companies are pretty easy to find from those perspectives online.
So I moved
Um,
from your website to the Blockchain Legal Institute. And the reason why I did that, and for everyone that is interested in learning more about the Blockchain Legal Institute, it's really a centralized library of resources in this decentralized space. So I will definitely put the corruption index up there. But you had also said, and I'm going to click on through, and I'm going to move this down so people can see it. You had told me about another website called Chain Abuse. And, you had also, mentioned a few other links that people could actually go into and actually see if certain things are legit. So do you want to talk a little bit about chain abuse and what that's all about?
oh yeah, absolutely. We could definitely dig into the chain abuse. Um, it's actually recently changed its name. It used to be BitcoinAbuse.com, and now they've adopted a new moniker and kind of a new appearance because a company took it over and continued on what they were doing, all the good work they were doing. And basically, what this organization has done is they accept reports for entities, crypto wallets, things of that nature that have been discovered by other consumers to have been involved in some form of malicious activity. So, real quick, easy resource, jump into chain abuse and conduct a real quick search on any of those things and see if there's been other reports by other consumers on that item that are malicious, right? So if you want to avoid the frauds, the scammers out there in the crypto space, that's a one-stop shop, real quick way to determine if they are involved in that activity. And it also allows you to report activity. So if you're in the crypto space and you're buying cryptocurrency and you come across something that you almost are certain is a scam campaign ongoing or a hacker's campaign, ransomware, or exploitation of some kind, then you can go on there and you can report that wallet and provide details as to what you found from your own experience so that other consumers can be as educated as you have become on that item through their portal. And that's free. That takes 30 seconds to make that report and submit.
And that is something, from a peer-to-peer type of situation, which we all are in this decentralized space. It's really important for us to help each other out. And if we know that something is not legit, take the time to report it because that will help someone else. So I'm back on the Anti-Human Trafficking Intelligence Initiative, and I know that there's a lot of click-throughs. There's the blog area, the news area, the talk show area. What would you like to talk about, and how can people be more proactive?
Now, if you click on the blog section real quick, there's not a whole lot of posts in there, but the ones that we do put up there are usually substantial and full of information. For example, the dark webathon that we just conducted here about 4 months ago, where we brought together a lot of sponsoring organizations, and we had over 200 participants that had access to tools and resources and training on blockchain forensics and investigating the dark web. And then we set everyone free for about 2 weeks to investigate on the dark web using those tools. And what we ended up with at the end of that whole thing were over 400 unattributed wallets and dark websites were attributed to either child sex abuse material or pig butchering. And it didn't cost anything to participate. We don't typically charge our participants to show up unless we're offering a certification from one of our partners and they have asked that we ask for a donation for that certification. For example, the one we offered in this event, we had Blockchain Intelligence Group as our co-host, and they offered the CCI certification for $100.
That's
That's
an
$1,000 certification that people jumped on board and like crazy. We had, I think, probably 6 or 7 provinces, 25 states, and 16 countries that now have new certified cryptocurrency investigators as a result of that event.
That's phenomenal. I know that's how actually I met Larry Cameron, is because I became certified with the Blockchain Intelligence Group through their program last year. So it's an excellent program, and the fact that they offered it at such a deep discount is phenomenal, because it's definitely an educational tool that can be used. You also have talk shows too. You have podcasts that you where you have a variety of conversations and topics that people can listen to as well.
Yeah, we do a lot of our own engagements like this one with other organizations, and we also follow a lot of other organizations and what they're putting out there, what they're learning about, because as we've learned over time, the value of collaboration when it comes to technologies like blockchain or artificial intelligence or machine learning and their implied uses in countering human trafficking is of phenomenal value. When we as a species are attacking a singular problem from a single pane of glass, it is very, very, very much more challenging for the bad guys to skirt away, to hide in the shadows, to avoid detection when we're all looking at it the same way. So we definitely thoroughly impress upon everyone to collaborate, to get out there, to learn, to expose yourself to new things, to go to conferences, to watch things like Crypto Mom 2 and learn more about the cryptocurrency space, the blockchain forensic space, what's developing, what's new, what trends are out there. Those are all valuable points. You know, if you from either perspective, whether you're a business owner, you're doing it from the business perspective, or you're an individual who's just jumping on to purchase some cryptocurrency, you know, have that overview, understanding of what's going on in that space and how your engagement as a consumer or a business is affected by everything else going on.
I agree. I definitely agree. Education is important, and spreading the word about what you're doing is equally important. I know that we're going to be doing another recording this week about what's called pig butchering, and just, some of the personal scams that exist on many different levels. Before we sign off today and hop on to our next recording, in a few days, is there anything that you would like individuals to be thinking about or to know? And again, for everyone who is listening, the website definitely will be embedded below, so that way you can support these efforts in a variety of ways. But any last minute thoughts that you'd like to share with everyone?
Yeah. I think we are, as I had indicated earlier, we're living in a time and a space where everything is on impulse. You know, I would encourage everyone out there to slow down every once in a while, take a break, enjoy your surroundings, spend time with your family, and in doing so, you'll bring yourself back to a place where the impulse is not driving your decisions. It's more of a thought out, logical process that's doing that. And that in and of itself is something that everyone can do, and that will have an immediate impact on how much exploitation is going on in the world today. Because a lot of the fact of the matter is that it's so prolific because we've turned a blind eye, we're not paying attention. we're so caught up in everything going on around us on our social media accounts and our shopping, our jobs, and watching the news and what have you, that important topics like human trafficking are not on the forefront, and you can very easily miss them and their impact. So
Yeah, again, the transactions might happen online, but the people are in real life. So, again, when you're walking down the street or when you're traveling or, you're just kind of out and about, I think you're right. We have to be fully aware of what's going on because, again, we could help someone else that might be in danger. And not that we want to put ourselves at risk, but we definitely need to be looking at the fact that we're a global community and that what we do in one part of the world can be impacted in another part of the world. So we're definitely, the world is, and I think COVID has shown us that we're very interconnected. And the fact that we all a few years ago were in lockdown, and kind of made us isolate, but also realize the importance of the community.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I appreciate your being on, Chris. I appreciate what you're doing. Definitely everyone who's listening. This conversation, like all my others, it's going to stay on the feed forever. So if you're hearing this, share the message. Share the link with someone else so that way someone else can also learn about this, because you never know who you're going to share it with, who might need to know about this, or who else you might be able to help. So it really is passing it on to help others, and also then reaching out to support what the Anti-Human Trafficking Intelligence Initiative is doing, because it's hard, for charities all around. It's hard if there's not both the volunteer support as well as the financial support. So definitely take a look at that donate button and, think about just a little bit, because a little bit is always better than nothing. And as I always say at the end of all my shows, be kind to yourself, be kind to, others. We're also interconnected and we're all part of one world. So for everyone, thank you so much for being on and listening, and have a great day. And we will talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye, guys.